Hi, it's Lillian. I am the creator of Living with Charlotte. And for those who don't know me, I am a homeschooling mom of two boys, and I am a Charlotte Mason fangirl. So I'm going to keep saying that because I just really am. I just love Charlotte Mason and everything she has to say. So welcome to the second video of the Alveary Deep Dive Curriculum Review series. Okay, this is going to be a 10-part series. It's a long series, I know, for just one curriculum, but let me at least say this is the reason why I wanted to do a deep dive into these curriculum reviews is that I've noticed that a lot of people, when we talk about curriculum, when we share about curriculum, a lot of it is coming from our own experiences, which can be very helpful. But I think at the same time, it sometimes leaves out some of the things that are actually available in the curriculum that might have been helpful for other kinds of families. And so that's why I wanted to do more of these objective deep dive reviews that really show you every single feature of the curriculum so that you feel empowered to make a choice for your own family to see like, oh yeah, I think that'll work, or yeah, probably not what we're looking for, but at least you have a very uh, uh, accurate view of everything that the curriculum entails. So I hope this is helpful for you, and that's why I'm doing these videos. I have a lot to cover, even though it's just two topics today or two subjects today. And I printed everything out so that I don't forget. So please forgive me if I'm like looking down at my notes because I just want to make sure that I get to everything that I wanted to say about the subjects that we're talking about. Okay, really quick before we get into the actual review, I wanted to shout out this video's sponsor, Humble Heart Press. I know the owner of Humble Heart Press. Her name is Jamie, and she's such a lovely person. And please go check out Humble Heart Press. I'm just going to read off for you what I have in terms of their description, so I hope that's okay. So, Humble Heart Press and Alveary have partnered together to turn their digital curriculum into beautiful, ready to use physical books, which I will show you later. They figured out all the formatting, binding, such as using durable lay flat tape binding and using black and white printing where it makes sense to save on costs. So everything ships straight to your door and it's ready to open and go. So thank you, Humble Heart Press, for sponsoring this video. Okay, so jumping in, we're going to start off with history and then do geography in this video review. History. Alveary has a US version and a Canada version, which is really nice. Let me just read you a quick quote by Charlotte Mason. And I'm going to be sharing like Charlotte Mason quotes here because that's what I do. Did I mention I'm a fangirl? I very much am. Okay, so history. This is in volume 6. History is the pivot upon which our curriculum turns. History is the rich pasture of the mind, which increases upon the knowledge of men and events, and, more than all, upon the sense of nationhood, the proper corrective of the intolerable individualism of modern education. So that was in volume 6, page 273, if you have the original version of it. So I feel like Alveary really takes this quote to heart. And so that's why I wanted to start this review series with deep diving into history first, because they really have tied in a lot with their history curriculum. So I'll kind of explain a bit what that means. They go through a 4-year history cycle. So they do a rotation through the 800 to 1650, and then 1650 to 1800, 1800 to 1900, and then 1900 to the present. And then they'll just cycled through those every 4 years. Just like in Charlotte Mason schools, where all the students studied the same time period at the same time, the whole school would then start over again and go back to their first, I guess, history rotation. So Alveary's curriculum has the whole family in the same period and anchors subjects like literature, art study, music study, architecture, geography to that time period. So as Charlotte Mason said, the child can, quote, think the thoughts of the man of that period and is at home in the ways of that period. For history, in terms of scope and sequence, they start with the beginning history of one's nation. So, for Charlotte Mason, that was obviously England, Britain, and she suggested that we start that in the early years. So this means for both the U.S. and the Canada track, grade one goes through the beginnings of North American history. And that includes the early inhabitants, the indigenous peoples of North America before outside settlers arrived. And then in grades 2 to 3, this is where they start to keep a timeline and they start studying national US or Canada history. Mason, she strongly recommended that students learn as early as possible the histories of other nations, as, quote, the study of English history, because since they're in England, the study of English history alone is apt to lead to a certain insular and arrogant habit of mind. And so I think that the Alveary again takes that to heart. And so they have the students, as they continue in their study of US history or Canadian history, in grades 4 to 6, students will start to begin a multi strand approach to history. So, what that means is they study the histories of other countries as well as ancient history. So, that's around like 3500 to 800 AD, 3500 BC to 800 AD. And that's when they'll begin keeping their own book of centuries. And then from grades 7 and up, so the upper years, they continue this multi strand study of history, and students will be challenged to now think like historians, like true historians. So, thinking about how to evaluate multiple perspectives, wrestle with complex primary sources, and it's all towards the goal to view the study of history as an ongoing conversation of the past. Now, in terms of book choices, there are some familiar classics that they use in their book lists. So things like Founding Brothers or 1493 for young people, Johnny Tremain, which we just read this past year, and Black Ships Before Troy, which we also read and really enjoyed this past year. So I think Alveary shoots for a mix of what I would call like historian forward books and also primary resource forward books. So, what I mean is that I don't think Alveary shies away from incorporating more modern books that are written by contemporary historians to bring a more knowledgeable purview of history that reflects the current body of research. And they also cover the primary sources of that historical time period as well. I suggest I'm not going to talk too much about the actual book choices because Alveary on their YouTube channel, they have videos that go through like book previews for each of the grade levels, or like different bands of grade levels. So make sure you check that out because I don't want to kind of regurgitate the same information that they have, but they do explain why they choose certain books, why it's a better fit for that grade or for that historical time period that they're studying. So I suggest that you go check that out. All right, everyone. So we are going to look at the actual curriculum and do a quick flip through. For simplicity, I am just going to flip through the grade 8 and show you what some of these lesson plans look like so you get an idea of what is included. This is also a great time for me to remind you about the Alveary series curriculum review series sponsor, Humble Heart Press. So Humble Heart Press sent me this sample of their curriculum, of the Alveary curriculum, and what it would look like when it's printed out. So for this whole book, this is just covering these subjects. The paper that they use is nice and thick. It's not just copy paper. What Jamie did tell me is that when this is actually printed out, it's not going to be in color. So that's just to like save on costs for the printing, to use their printing service. And you can see that this also has, because it's tape binding, it lies nice and flat if you have it just open, so you don't have to keep like holding it open or anything like that. So it's really wonderful quality um, when you actually get your hands on it. So flipping to history. So again, this is just for grade 8. And what they have at the beginning is a description of the history course and what it's going to cover. It'll have some placement and combining tips, scheduling. What's kind of neat is they have these little symbols of whether a lesson needs full teacher attention or half teacher attention or little teacher attention, and they can do it pretty independently. And if if the lesson is shared with other grades, planning and prep section, and it'll give you some specific tips about the particular course. Um, and then there's books and resources. What's nice is that they have pictures of the covers, so you know exactly which one you're supposed to purchase. Any supplies that are needed, and quick links, extra helpings. So every lesson plan will have something called extra helpings. And that's if you want to dive further into the subject or topic that's covered. And then any printouts like history charts, century chart, history chart prompts that they'll go through. So that's usually at the beginning of every uh, pack of lessons for a course. And then for history, the actual lessons will follow this general flow. So there's the first part is to prepare, recap of the lesson or previous lesson, introduce, read, narrate, discuss, and connect. So, as you can see, this is one of the first lessons here in term 1, week 1, and it'll generally follow this flow that I just showed you. So, like, there might be a prep section if that was relevant, an intro. This is kind of helpful. Like, usually I'll actually just read this out loud to my students and get them introduced to that particular lesson. Sometimes there's a map exercise that is relevant for that history lesson. And this one, there's like a video link, any background information. So there's a lot that kind of goes into introducing the lesson here. And then it gets into the read, narrate, and discuss portion. And they will tell you exactly what pages to read. And if it's like kind of I've noticed that if the reading is not necessarily chapter by chapter, then they'll tell you, okay, start from, the paragraph that says a parcel of, and then go all the way to the sentence that ends with Francis were 16. On this side, it's kind of helpful that they have definitions of words that the students might not be familiar with, and any teacher's notes, like especially if there's something that is very outdated or inaccurate, or there's a bias or racism, they will have, make a note of that. So it's really up to the teacher to do what they want with that information, but it is nice that they provide that. So if you didn't have a chance to pre-read, or if it's something that you didn't catch, then they'll have that there. um, some other things that are really nice is they will have suggestions on compositions that you can write as a narration exercise, other teachers' notes. So, yeah. Oh, and here's an example of an extra helping. If you want to dive in further, like why Christians should read mythology. And so that would be really helpful to have. And then they'll have like, important dates to know. And these would be dates that you could possibly put into your timeline or your book of centuries. Okay, so that is the flip through of the lesson plans. At the very end, they do provide exams for each of the terms. Term one, the exams that are based on the books that they just read, term two, and term three. So you have that all there ready for you, and you can use this as is. I think in my first video, you saw where they listed all the exam questions on a separate um, PDF, but it's also included in the lesson plans. Okay, so I hope that flip through helped you to see what's included in the history curriculum for Alveary. Overall, I think Alveary's approach to history and their choice of living books is to bring a fuller, more balanced lens so it doesn't fall into the trap of presenting history as being only like one sided or relying on perhaps outdated historian author texts. And I think Alveary really does take to heart the importance of bringing in diverse perspectives and to study the histories of other nations, which I think uh, there's a lot of places in Charlotte Mason's writing where she supports this. She also says about studying the historical time period when it's time to restudy that. She says the books studied when they're restudying it is to throw new light and bring the young students into line with modern research. So she definitely is for uh, more texts that will bring in some of the latest research that is available. And that's in volume 6, by the way. Okay, so that was history. And for geography, what's really great about geography is they, again, try to follow what Charlotte Mason tried to prescribe as um, the scope and sequencing of how to introduce the topic of geography. So, Charlotte Mason, she viewed geography not merely as a utilitarian subject, or a means of scientific training, but as a study of high educational value, uniquely fitted to, quote, nourish the mind with ideas and to furnish the imagination with pictures. And another quote I wanted to share is the importance of starting with the local outdoors as their first geography lesson. So she says about pictorial geography, and this is in volume 1. But the mother who knows better will find 100 opportunities to teach geography by the way. A duck pond is a lake or an inland sea. Any brooklet will serve to illustrate the great rivers of the world. A hillock grows into a mountain, an alpine system. Indeed, the whole field of pictorial geography, maps may wait until by and by may be covered in this way. So I think again, Alveary follows Charlotte Mason's sequencing, and and they start the early years in geography lessons, starting with grade 1, with the foundational concepts and local geography. So they introduce, the ideas of the Earth's continents, the changing seasons, basic topographical features, and the course spine is Charlotte Mason's own elementary geography, and it's supplemented by books about maps and other concepts such as night and day and water cycles. So they will also have experience creating 3D and 2D maps using blocks. And they start with their own familiar spaces, whether it's like their backyard or their bedroom, and they create maps for those. Then in grades 2 to 3, geography lessons focus on their own nation. So again, there's a split track for this as well. So there's a US track and a Canada track. And they get a broad and thorough lay of the land of their own country. They begin learning to use atlases and how to find things on a map and creating relief models of mountains and canyons and valleys and they use clay, and they continue with map making exercises on their own to draw scale maps of their homes and neighborhoods. That was actually a really fun exercise that we did, and they would just walk around and draw the map on graph paper. In grades 4 to 6, this is when they start to align the geography lessons, especially the living books that they use, with the current history rotation. So, this is when they'll incorporate primary sources like travel logs and biographies of notable explorers and cartographers from that period. And then they'll continue with map work and exercises, and those become more advanced. And they will continue with their 3D model creations of a river or models of countries and just other creative project applications. In grades 7 to 8, students will then transition more into cartography and historical geography. So they'll learn the history of map making, they'll learn how to create their own accurate maps of the world from scratch, and continue reading living books that align with the historical time period that's being studied. And they'll get to learn about the adventures of all of these famous map makers and explorers who charted their travels. And then in the higher grades, basically high school, grades 9 to 12, they move further into complex ideas about how geography impacts history and how it impacts politics and culture. And they'll read books on how the natural borders that these countries have start to dictate global politics, and continue in reading primary sources based on the current history rotation. Throughout the grades, the lessons assign afternoon geography walks, with earlier grades observing simple phenomena such as the behavior of rainwater, while the older grades have more analytical observations that tie into their map making exercises, such as creating a sensory map of their backyard, engaging in other more advanced cartography exercises. Now, in terms of book choices, so I've already mentioned Elementary Geography by Charlotte Mason, and there's other primary source travel logs that they incorporate by noted explorers and related biographies. And like their approach to history, their approach to geography books are I think Alveary seems to opt for geography books that encompass our current day's body of knowledge when it's appropriate. And so they'll incorporate things that are written by geography experts that are more modern and versus relying on older texts. So again, I suggest that you check out their book previews that they have on their YouTube channel, and you'll see some of the choices that they've made for each of the grade levels and for some of the subjects. Okay, so we are back to our flip through, and this is for geography. So you're going to see a lot of the similar formatting that they have in the flow of these lesson plans. So here's geography, and again, this one starts with, again, about the course, placement combining tips, scheduling tips, planning and prep, books and resources, so the book list, supplies, and quick links to the lessons. Okay, so for geography, this is what their overview, or sorry, this is what their flow of the lesson looks like. So they'll have an overview for the lesson, an introduction to the lesson. They do a lot of map questions, so I really appreciate these map exercises that they do because it really gets them familiar with using maps. Read, narrate, more map work. And yeah, so that's the general flow. Okay, so some things I want to point out here. So this is their first lesson. Here you can see that things that you would need to prep, they have that listed at the top. There's an introduction, and here are the map questions that go along with the lesson. So like for this lesson, they're reading Carry On, Mr. Bowditch. And then other materials you would need is the US Atlas, a blank map, and a geography notebook. Um, and then here they have these map questions so that it gets them familiar with seeing those locations on the map. And then the read, narrate, and discuss. And then map work. So for this one here, as an example, you will need your printed map of Massachusetts. You may use it as an outline to draw your own map or tape it to the third page in your geography notebook, etc. So they have all these detailed guides, or I guess detailed instructions on how to do each lesson. Again, on this section, they have definitions that might be helpful for them to go through. So they'll have an extra helping section, and sometimes they provide extra resources to dig deep into the lesson. Either it's a video link or an article or an image that the students can look at. And then same as history, you also have the term 1, 2, and 3 exams. So here, part of the exam is to actually fill out a blank map. And so this one, it's fill out the blank map of the northeastern states with the capital cities. And there's a link to print that out, and that is part of their exams. All right, so again, I hope that flip through was helpful. And overall, I think Alveary has a pretty rigorous and you know, very comprehensive geography curriculum that they use. I really like how they bring in a lot of the map work and the map exercises and being able to draw, if it's for the US, like being able to draw the shapes of the states, and for other countries, being able to draw the world map, even from memory. So that is some of the goals that they try to achieve in their curriculum. And it's not just book work, it's not just reading these living books. That's part of it, but they do a really good job of like diving deep into how maps are created and the whole history of geography. So they're really encouraged to think. Truly, it's a nourishing of the mind and imagination with pictures, and to also see those connections with what might be happening in our world, geopolitically, right? And it provides a rich foundation as a very living subject that's not just dry, and it's not just about memorizing where is this country or what's the capital of this and this state. Okay, so that's it for this deep dive. We just covered history and geography. Make sure you check out my Alveary deep dive review playlist. Again, this is a 10-part series, and we are on video number 2. This is the first deep dive into the subject. Video number 1 was giving you like an introduction to Alveary, all the other stuff that they include in the curriculum, and the rest of these videos, numbers 2 through 10, right? I said 10 part. So 2 through 10, that will be deep dives into the subjects. So if you really liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications so you'll know when the next video in this series drops. The next one in this series, video number 3, will be all about literature, poetry, Shakespeare, all of that. And if you know another Charlotte Mason mom who will find this video helpful, please forward it to her. And please help spread the word about these curriculum videos. I really want these to be useful and helpful for families like yours. Also, comment below, what are some things that you would like for me to cover in these deep dives? And if there's any other curriculum you would want me to do a deep dive into, please leave that in the comments below. I know I did a quick flip through of the grade 8 lesson plans. And again, that's for simplicity. I can't show you like all the lesson plans for all the grades. But if you are very curious about a specific grade and subject, and you would like me to do a quick flip through of that particular grade, let me know in the comments below for that too. And I can upload that as a separate, maybe like a quick short or something like that. So make sure to comment that below. And lastly, if you're considering one of the big 5 Charlotte Mason curriculum, so big 5 meaning Alveary, Ambleside Online, CMEC, A Gentle Feast, and Simply Charlotte Mason. So those are what I'm considering the big 5. If you're considering one of those and you just need a little bit of guidance on which one would be a good fit for you, I created a freebie for for you guys if you're in that situation of like a decision matrix. So if this, then that. Like if you're considering a certain type of curriculum, if there are certain things that you would like to see in your curriculum choice, I created a freebie just for you so that it can help you make that decision a little bit easier. So go ahead and click on the link in my description box and sign up for my emails, and you will get that freebie right away. All right, that is it. Please check out the rest of this curriculum deep dive series, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.